Have you ever felt like your credit score is this mysterious number that's controlling your life, but no one's really ever taught you how it works?
It's like an invisible report card following you around, and every time you need it, it's either your best friend or your worst nightmare.
Exactly. And the crazy part is, so many people are walking around stressed out about their scores, not realizing what actually hurts it, or even better, how to boost it.
That's what we're unpacking today. We're breaking down what credit scores really means, what's dragging it down, and here's the good part, simple, practical moves you can make to get it climbing back up again.
So, whether you're trying to buy your first house, get a better credit card, or just want to stop feeling anxious every time you check your credit score, this episode is for you.
So stick with us because by the end of today's episode, you will know exactly how to take control of your credit and not the other way around.
This is the Fi Guys. Let's get into it. Dom, tell me if you've ever heard of this before, or if you know someone like this. Have you ever thought that your credit score is somehow controlling your life, but no one ever taught you how it works?
You know, I don't know about controlling my life, right? I don't really, I want to say I don't use credit score that often, right? But to be honest, it still plays such an important role in my life, right? I mean, I do want to own a house one day. I want to get another car, right? So these things definitely revolve around a credit score. But I gotta say, I learned a little bit about it in high school, but ever since then, it's been kind of a mystery. So I'm excited to dive deep on today's episode and really get into the details, into the weeds of what's a credit score and why do we need it? Why is it so important?
Yeah, that sounds good. Today, what I'd like to discuss for our audience members is, first off, what is a credit score? What drags down your credit score? And most importantly, how do you improve your credit score? Because I think a lot of people, they'll go on there, they'll look at those numbers. Maybe it's 350, maybe it's 850. And they're like, I don't know what any of this means. What's good? What's bad? So today we're going to break all of that down. How's it sound?
I love it. Let's do it.
So first question is, what is a credit score? And what's its definition? And more importantly, what's the purpose of it? So to break this down real simple, to not try to make all this fancy mumbo jumbo, your credit score is used as a financial trustworthiness score. Basically, people get to look at that one number and say, how financially trustworthy are you? Imagine being back in school and you're saying, no, I'm a really good student. But every time you come in, people look at your report cards, they look at your personal history, it's all D's. All F's. You're like, no, but I'm a really good student. Like, I show up to class every day and I do everything. Stuff's always on time. I always pay it. I always bring my homework in, but you have all D's and F's. It's going to be a little difficult for people to be like, I believe you here. It's the exact same thing for your credit score.
Interesting. So, okay. So that kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense. And I hope that's not calling anybody out with their D's and F's, because we both know that even if you get C's all through school, doesn't make you a bad person or not trustworthy, right? Or not smart, right? Plenty of people are very smart. They just don't do good in school. But like you said, the credit card it's your history. It's your payment history. It's how much a bank or someone or a lender can trust you, right?
Exactly that. And when it comes to people that are looking at that can be anyone from a lender, like you just mentioned. So that could be from a car payment to maybe a loan from a bank. That could be for your house payment. It could be someone who's a landlord who's just looking to rent, or you're trying to rent from somebody. That could be either for a house or even an apartment building. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. Like, hey, I need to go rent this apartment. What does my credit score mean? Well, if they have two people that are going for it, they both have the same history, but one person has a 720 credit score and somebody has a 500. Well, I'm going to guess that most people are going to go for the person who has a quote unquote good credit score rather than the person who is somewhere in the fair to poor category. In addition to that, there's also insurers that will use that when it comes down to maybe annuities or life insurance. What sort of coverages would you be able to get? So credit score, unfortunately, is a very big thing. And I know that there are people out there who say that if you have a good credit score, it means that you have a I love debt score. And I agree that no one wants to have to use this, but unfortunately, this is the world that we live in. There's no one out there who's able to walk off the street and buy a house straight cash where they don't have to utilize credit. There are very few people that can go in, purchase a car straight cash. Ideally, that we lived in a world that we all could do that, but we don't. So we have to use the credit score as a tool that it is.
So you threw out some numbers right there. And I just want to confirm, like, what are these numbers, right? Obviously it's not a 0 to 100 scale for credit score, although that would be pretty easy, right? That would probably be maybe even 0 to 1,000, really easy. But they go from the bottom is 300, right? And then the top is 850. I'm not going to ask you what the history of 300 and 850 and how they came to these random numbers. I don't really care. I don't think anybody cares how they came to these numbers, but this is the kind of the confines and what we're working in. But 850 is the top, right? It's the best of the best. It's tough to get, right, Chris?
Yeah, keeping an 850 is very difficult. I've met some people that say they had it for a little bit, then it went away. And just so you know, there are two common ways of scoring your credit score. One is the FICO score, which I'm sure everyone's heard of, and the other one is called the Vantage score. Why they're different? Why does Equifax, TransUnion, why do they all have slightly different scores? It's because the algorithm they're running is always slightly different, but they should be within a range of each other of around 20 to 50. If there are bigger disparities between that, it's worth calling to see what's going on. So like you said there, our ranges go from 300 to 800. And just like in school, we had an A, B, C, D, E, F. It's a little bit different for this one. The F range is substantially wider. That goes from a 300 to a 579. If you're in that range, you are unfortunately qualified as a poor credit lender, meaning that if someone does want to lend to you, your interest rate traditionally will be substantially higher. And the reason for that is if you have a history of not making your payments on time and in full, that means that you are a bigger risk to the person giving you the money. So they need to compensate themselves for that by increasing your interest rate, meaning the amount of money you have to pay to them in order to get money from them to pay them back.
And you said something, if you have like a 579 and below, it's going to be, are lenders going to want to work with you, or do they just like, I don't want to work with you at all? Like it's too much risk. Like, can you ever get like shut away? Like no, you can't, you're not getting anything from this bank, right? Does that happen all the time, getting denied if you're at low?
Supply and demand. So it's going to depend on what's going on in the economy. If there's a lot of people that have lower credit scores and they're all going there and no one with good credit scores are coming in, well, the bank needs to take on risk. That's the way that they make money, is by making those lendings. Yes, there is a chance, though, that they don't. If there's other people coming in, that they can go ahead and just get fares in. Again, there is no right answer or wrong answer. It's all a trade-off based off what the bank is willing to do and what they're willing to do in this economy versus a different economy versus this time versus a different time. I can't tell you. And yes, your credit score could be so bad that you can go into certain places and they'll just straight up deny you. And then that's the place where people will go into payday lending places or into some of those higher risk lenders in order to make up for it, because the traditional places like your bank, your credit union, wherever Jack and Jill go to down the street, those places are inaccessible to you if your credit score is below. And that doesn't mean that that's going to be like that forever, because you can always work out of it. So we have a poor range of 300 to 579. The next range would be fair. Fair means that, it's fine. You're not going to be the worst. You're not the best. And that's a 580 to a 669. Why they use these numbers, I have no idea. I'm just reporting it the way that it is. So most people don't want to be in the poor or the fair categories. Most people want to be in the good categories. Here at the Fi Guys, you know that we're really big on credit card hacking, being able to use credit cards strategically for their points. If you want to use any of those quote unquote premier credit cards, you need to at least be in the good range, which is a 760 to a 670 to a 739. And for the premier credit cards, you want a 720 or better. Then from there, there's a very good, which is a 740 to a 799. And then there's excellent, which is anything 800 to 850. And again, very good, excellent. At that point, we're talking about some tiny millipoints on an actual credit score. Maybe if somebody had excellent versus a very good, one person's interest rate could be a 6.1, where someone's would be a 6.2. We're not talking full percentage numbers here.
I think that's one of the things that I know some people in my circle get kind of mad about is, they have a 800 plus credit score and they went in to get a nice home loan and they didn't get any special treatment, right? They didn't get any, they weren't getting 4% loans, right? And it's like, yeah, sorry, like that's not going to happen. Like, we know you're good for it, but like, you're not getting like a creme de la creme loan from us today, sir. Sorry about that.
You have to remember that it's all based off supply and demand, what's going on. But the biggest thing that dictates your lending or what people are going to lend to you is the Federal Reserve's fund rate, what they lend to the bank for, because the bank has to make up their cost there. So that's the biggest thing. Like you could have a top credit score in a market where interest rates are super low and it's going to be great. And even if you had a fair or a poor, it's going to be a lot better than when interest rates are super high. It doesn't matter what your credit score is. There's always going to be a difference there. Those aren't going to match up, and that's not dictated by your credit score. That's dictated by the Federal Reserve and what they lend money to banks. So you could have a perfect credit score in a bad time, and it's not going to be as big of a deal.
Interesting. So kind of what I'm kind of getting from you, and maybe the viewers are picking up on this as well, but credit score is it's almost like a tool, right? Would you consider it a tool, kind of like, I mean, obviously it works in tandem with a credit card. I mean, they're one and the same in a sense, but the sharper your tool is, the more you can kind of access with the tool, right? The better credit cards you can get with a better credit score, the better. What else can you get with a great credit score? Just so we can kind of.
Really not a lot. I mean, a good credit score looks great. Maybe you're going to get a better credit. If the only time you're ever going to need to use a good credit score is if you're asking for something. Can I borrow something from you? Can I borrow money from you? Can I borrow something and I will pay it back? I promise that I will pay it back. That's the only time that you're going to really be accessing your credit score. No one's going around so there's no social credit score. Maybe we're moving into a world like that. Hopefully we're not, but there is nothing like that where someone's like, hey, should I date you or should I not date you? What's your credit score? If that is happening out there, leave it in the comments. Let me know what your dating history looks like, because I'd be very curious if that was a first question on a date.
That'd be really funny and red flaggish. Would that be a red flag if you went on a date and be like, hi, I'm Chris, I love jiu-jitsu. Oh, hey Chris, nice. What's your credit score?
That'd be a red flag for me. I'd be like, why do you want to know? Like, I understand maybe that's like a third level date. Like that's like, are we going to get serious about this? I just want to make sure that we don't move in together or something like that. And then you're like, oh, hey, by the way, I have like $60,000 in credit card debt and I don't plan on paying it. So you're going to help me, right? Like that's where you need to ask those questions.
Okay. So it's not a outlandish question to ask, but get to know them first. Gotcha. Duly noted.
And remember that it's just that's one factor, right? That would be like someone going in there and like you're dating somebody and someone has like a broken leg and you're like, oh, you're super unhealthy. You have a broken leg. It's like, no, I'm an athlete. Like I just got injured. It's like, no. This one metric I'm going off of, which is your leg. Can you walk on your legs? You don't meet that. So therefore it is. So it's the same thing for the credit score. Maybe you could ask a deeper question. Hey, tell me what you know about money. Are you investing in your 401k? There's a lot of other things we can ask than just looking at this one metric. No one goes to the doctors, and unfortunately, I guess we kind of do, but you shouldn't go to the doctor and they just weigh you on the scale and they're like, based off of your weight and height, we know everything we need to know about you. It seems that it happens pretty common, but it shouldn't be that way. There's other metrics that we need to look at holistically.
Okay, so we went over, what you can kind of get with a credit score. We talked about some good ranges, some bad ranges. Basically the definition, first segment. What else do we need to know about this? What is kind of calculated to get that score? Like how does that score even come about?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing that people are going to get out of here today, which is what factors make up somebody's credit score. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there where somebody will work so hard on something that only calculates maybe 10% of the credit score, and they'll ignore the other 90%. So today we're going to make sure that we break it down for you so you understand. And number one, this is the biggest one. It takes up 35% of your score. And I promise you, when I tell you how much of the score it makes up, at the end, it will equal 100. So 35% of your score out of 100 is made up by your payment history. This one is the simplest one to make sure that we do. And unfortunately, once you tank it, it's pretty hard to build it back up. And so that means that we have to make on-time payments in order to boost our score. Having missed or late payments hurt you substantially, especially if we have a perfect history and then we go from anything from perfect to imperfect. That's a big, big red flag. And the nice thing about our payment history is that this has been automated to the moon at this point. It used to be with credit cards that you had to manually go into the bank, pay these things off. You had to manually make sure that you set a calendar reminder in your phone to do this. Now with every single credit card, with every pretty basic bill pay, you can set up automatic and reoccurring payments to pay off the minimum balance, to pay off the statement balance, to pay off the full balance on whatever day that you set. So payment history should not be an issue for people anymore, given that you're using your credit card as we should, or whatever debt instrument that we use, like a debit card. As we're spending more money than we're making, then you're always going to have a difficult credit score, contrary to popular belief.
Okay, so first one was payment history, 35%. Can you guys guess what the next one is? Give you like 2 seconds. 1,000, 1,000. What's the next one, Chris? It can't be as important, or maybe it is. What are we talking? What number is it?
It almost is. It's 30% rather than 35%, and that's your credit utilization. Credit utilization basically means how much credit has been extended to you from all of the lenders that you've asked for money for, and how much of that are you utilizing. So let's go ahead and make it this very simple. Let's say that someone applies for a credit card, and this is the only thing they've ever applied for to ask for, hey, can you lend me money? So they have $1,000 available to them. Rule of thumb is you want to keep your credit utilization under 30%. So if you had $1,000 credit limit, you don't want to spend more than $300 that hits your statement balance. Typically, the lower that you use your utilization, the better your score is going to be. Me, myself, I try to keep my utilization below 2 or 3%. I have high credit utilization or high credit limits, and I'm paying off my balances typically in full. The reason that people look at this and it's such a big metric is, imagine that, Dom, I gave you $1,000 and you get to go use that $1,000, and every month you're maxing it out. You've spent all $1,000 and you're asking me for more. That makes me worried as the lender, saying, well, if you're using all of the credit limit, how are you ever going to pay this off? And if you're doing this every single time, that's pretty worrisome to me. So this is something that everyone can look at to try to say, hey, how can I use less credit? And that's going to, again, come back to making sure that we're spending less money than we're making.
No, I mean, that makes sense. But do you think it's 1% is 1%? That's tough, right? I know when I got my first credit card, I think it might have only been like $1,000, right? And doing the math on that, not much I can buy for that. I mean, I can go to the dollar store and probably go crazy on a few items. 1% is like the gold standard of utilization. Is there like a limit where it's like, don't cross it? Like, don't cross it.
I would say under 30% is usually the rule that we try to shoot for. Under 30% of utilization. And I will teach you a trick that no one really talks about. So the way that they go ahead and they utilize, or they say, how much are you utilizing? It's based off of the date that your statement closes. So let's say that you have a credit limit of $1,000, and you know that your credit card statement closes on the 31st or the 30th of the month. And let's say on the 2nd, you put $1,000 on that card. Well, the credit score or the credit company doesn't know that you put $1,000 until that statement balance hits on the 31st of the end of the month. So that means that you have the entire month, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 15th to the 23rd to the 27th, to pay that balance off in full, or as much as you possibly can. And whatever is remaining on there will actually get reported to the credit bureau. So you can use your credit card. I'm not going to say do it, but if you need to, you can use your credit card and then pay it off before the statement balance comes up. And now that's up to you to know when is your statement balance. And if you want to have them all on one day, you can always request from your credit card company or wherever you have your lender, you're lending from. Hey, can we have it all happen on the 1st, all happen on the 15th, all happen on a specific day? So you're not trying to keep track of when did these statements hit.
Interesting. So you're saying that we can call the credit card company and have them all like start on the same day? Damn.
Yeah, so you can say, hey, I want my statement balance, or I want my statement balance to start on January or on the 1st of every month, on the 5th, on whatever day. You're going to have to make a couple phone calls depending on how many credit cards you have. But yes, that is something that is possible to do. It only takes a phone call. If they say no to you, then there's probably bigger issues that's going on with your credit score if they're not willing to do that. But the biggest thing I'm trying to get with this is, if you only have $1,000 credit score, or even 100 points in credit that you're allowed to access, you can still use all of that up, and then you can pay it off before the statement comes out. And it will show that you utilize zero. You could put $1,000 on if you have 1,000. If you pay it off before the statement hits, whether that be on the 1st of the month or the end of the month or the middle of the month, you can pay it off, and it'll show when it reports to the credit bureau that you used zero utilization, or 1%, or whatever number that you use. Just remember, it takes a couple of days for that to clear. And you have to remember if there's still pending charges on your cards, because most times when you swipe your credit card, it doesn't hit the statement balance immediately. It takes a couple of days, unlike a debit card.
I wish every company was like that. That would be so nice, because I have like a master calendar of like all the bills. I'm like, all right, what's due on which day, right? And I call the water company, and I'm like, hey, like, it seems like the day is always switching on when it drops. Like, it's not a big deal that it comes out. I like to have it on my calendar and have it like on repeat, so I don't ever have to think about it. It's like I get a notification, and they gave me a. I was like, what day does it come out? And they're like, well, it depends on the month, and it's like the second Friday of every month, unless it lands. It was like some crazy. No, it was the first 15th of every month, unless it lands on a weekend. Then it goes to the Monday. And it was like, this is terrible. It's a horrible system. I mean, I'm not pressed for money, but like, that's real annoying. I want it to be like the same day every month, and like kind of bugging me a lot. But anyway,
Yeah, that would be really nice. With credit cards, you can call and do that. Most utilities will let you do it too. I know for like me with my internet, I called and said, "Hey, can I do this on the first rather than on?" I think it was originally for like the something else. You can ask those types of things. They don't have to say yes, but it's always worth an ask. So we've talked a little bit about what makes up 65% of your credit score. 65%, that's your payment history and your credit utilization. So if that means that 65% was made up by those two numbers, we should definitely make sure that we're focusing on those two numbers over everything else. I've met too many people who look at the other metrics and focus only on those while limiting how much they're paying on their credit or how making payments on time and in full and their credit utilization. Don't just go chasing these little guys when you have these big guys that are sitting there right in front of you. So we've talked about payment history, 35%, credit utilization, 30%. The next one, which makes up 15% of your credit score, is the length of credit history. Now, I know this one kind of sucks for people, especially people that are younger. You're like, hey, how am I supposed to increase this? Well, it takes time. That's all you can do with it. And the good news is it only makes up 15% of your credit score. So what we want to do is we want to show that we have older accounts that shows that we have experience with credit. We have the ability to do this over time and it works. So the biggest thing that we can do for this is don't close your old accounts.
okay, that's simple enough. I know a lot of people get accounts in high school that might co-sign with their parents, and like they just keep that credit card along forever. I mean, that's actually my oldest living credit card is the one I got from Bank of America when I was like 15 and my mom co-signed, and I've had it for 10 years.
Yep. And I have the same thing. And if you ever get to the point where your parents don't want you on that card, rather than canceling it, just say, okay, can we remove them as a cosigner? Can we have them removed from the credit? You can still keep that credit history. The worst thing you can do, though, is say you have that credit card that's 10 years old and you have a brand new credit card that's 1 year old. Well, now your credit history shows that you have 5 years. They take those two numbers, they divide it by 2. But if you go ahead and you cancel that old card, that 10-year-old card, now it shows you have a credit history of 1 year. So it's very important that we keep those old cards open. And if your parents no longer want to sign with you or be on there with you, again, it's a question you have to ask. Hey, can we remove this person from my or from the card as a cosigner and just have me on it so I can retain that credit history? Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there where people will say, if you want to increase your credit score, you need to close all your cards so you're not utilizing the credit cards. And that is true, but that's only an issue with you. If you are utilizing the cards, if you say, hey, I have all this credit available to me, I have to use it all, that's an issue with you, not with a credit card. So keeping those old cards open can be a huge, huge improvement towards your credit score.
What I'm getting out of this is like, we need to learn more about the questions we should be asking, because you're kind of putting me on to like, oh, I didn't know you could ask these certain questions. I didn't know you could take someone off a cosign. I didn't know you could move the date on when it's due. I'm learning a lot here, and we've done this podcast before. That we're kind of redoing this podcast because we had a credit score episode way back in the day, and we thought we'd freshen it up a little bit. But I feel like I'm learning a bunch of new stuff, and I'm excited to keep going. I hope hope you guys are enjoying this as well. Let's continue, Chris, please. I mean, this is a wealth of information.
Perfect. So we've talked about 80% of what makes up your credit score. That's 35% payment history, 30% credit utilization, 15% length of credit. The other 20% come up of two factors, and they're both equal to 10%. One is your credit mix. So that means having both revolving credit, like credit cards, and installments. Maybe that's student loans, car payments, mortgage, things like that. They help to show that you have positive ability to pay different types of credits. Because someone who just has credit cards or just has a student loan, it doesn't show that you're as good with credit as someone who has a bunch of different ones. Now, again, this can get people into issues when they only focus on this and they go around trying to open up all these different types of credit in order to show like, hey, look at how many credits I have. Well, now they're only focusing on the 10% rather than the utilization, the payment history, the length of credit. So you have to look at this as a whole. when there's too many people that look at this as one factor, and then they realize they complain, why is my credit score not working when I focus only on this one factor, when they're avoiding the other four. And the other four are substantially larger than the one that most people focus on.
How does that all play? I always hear people say, like, when you're going to look at cars, go look at a bunch of different dealerships at the same time, so it only affects your credit score so much. Where does that play into all of this?
So that actually comes from the next point. That comes from new credit inquiries, which makes up 10% of your score again. That means that hard inquiries, meaning that someone looks into, hey, how much can we loan to this person? That shows the credit companies that this person is asking for loans. So now they're becoming more risky because they're asking for more money to be given to them. So yes, if you want to apply for a bunch of credit cards on one day, you want to go ahead and look for a loan for a car or a house. The credit companies know that when somebody is applying for a car or applying for a home loan, that they're going to go to multiple places to find that out. No one goes to one bank, one credit loan place, and it's like, hey, how much can you guys give me? Cool, I'm going to go with that. Most people don't do that. So they're going to ask for a bunch. So yes, if you do them typically within a week is usually the right number, depending on the type. Credit cards, I think it's 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. If you're applying for multiple credit cards, it'll only hit one. For car loans, I think it's 3 days. I think for houses, it's like 2 weeks, a week to 2 weeks. If you're applying for a bunch in those, it's not going to harm your score. But hard inquiries only temporarily lower your score. And remember, they only make out 10%. So this is where it gets a little weird, because it either makes sense to space out your applications, so put them very far away, or put them all together at one time. And you're only going to put them all together at one time. It's only for one type of loan. That doesn't mean that you go and apply for a car loan, a house loan, and credit cards all simultaneously, because those are, and a student loan, because those are all going to be different types of inquiries. But if it's the same type, then they're not going to trigger you multiple times. Because someone applying for a car loan and that car company puts out offers to 16 different banks to say, hey, what can be the best car loan that these banks or whatever partners they have will offer, you're not going to get hit for 16 different applications. You're only going to get hit for one.
I mean, that makes sense. So kind of like if you're going to go and get pre-qualified for a house, you shouldn't also be looking for a car at the same time, is what you're saying.
Typically, if you're trying to apply for a house and you're trying to get a good loan, you don't want to have any credit utilization being used.
Oh, okay.
That's typical.
Okay.
You want your credit score to be like the bee's knees when especially for a house, because there's such large payments. So usually you want like nothing to be hitting on your cards. You want zero balances. You want to be like perfect utilization, perfect payment history, length of everything you want to have on point if you're applying for a house. You don't want to be having all these other things, because the new credit inquiry is the one that like really hurts the score quickly. So a lot of people will be like, oh, Chris, you had me apply for this credit card and now my credit score dropped 10 to 20 points. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be like that for maybe a month or two. And then it's going to go right back up, if not even surpass your credit score, because now you have more credit utilization available to you. You're going to have more ability to get better payments or you're going to have more ability to show payment history. Again, you take a shot, you're going to take a punch in order to keep on winning. But if you're doing that right before going for one of the biggest loans of your life, 10 or 20 points could be a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I hope that everybody in the comments, I hope that makes sense to you guys as well. I don't think you could have broken it down any better than you did there. So that's the total. That's the payment history, credit utilization, length of credit history, credit mix, and new credit inquiries, totaling 100%. Right, Chris?
Yep. And this is where people normally get hurt, is they start focusing on just one factor rather than the multitude of factors. Hopefully you realize that 65% of your credit score is made up by on-time payments and credit utilization. Those are two things that are 100% in your control today. The length of credit, that comes with time. Credit mix, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to go and say, hey, I have to have a student loan and a car loan and a house loan and all these credit cards. Focus on the things you can focus on. New credit inquiries, it doesn't make sense for you to go and keep on opening up credit cards or opening up different cards because you think like, oh, this is how I'm going to win the system, by focusing on this 20% rather than focusing on the 80%. So I know we already hit this, but I want to make sure that it's very clear to people. I want to talk about what hurts your credit score. Number one, late or missed payments. That makes up 35% of your score, and that tanks credit scores substantially more than anything else. Most people will focus on one of the other things and continually miss this one. So you can sit there and try to make your credit score perfect, but if 35% of it is made up of this and you're failing at this, you will never have a great credit score, or it will be near impossible. Any questions on that, Doc?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, say someone has missed payments in the past, how can they recover from that? Like, do they maybe double pay or triple pay? If you make more payments, like obviously you get the minimum payment. But say they paid, say they're, I'm just gonna put out some numbers, right? Say they owe $200 on their credit card. The minimum payment is $25. Will the credit score go up higher if you pay $100 of the $200, or will it be higher if you just do the minimum payments? Or I know like what you do, you usually just pay it off every month, to help with like credit utilization and whatnot. But can your score go up higher if you pay a certain amount?
That won't change much of anything, but what that will help is your credit utilization. So if you pay more, to help with your credit utilization. The best way, honestly, Dominic, to do this, if you're talking about credit cards in specific, is you have to pay off the statement balance. You have to pay off that credit card in full. If you're making minimum payments on a credit card, you're losing the game. Like this isn't the podcast for you. Focusing on the credit score isn't for you right now. You need to start paying your credit card in full. If you're making minimum payments, you are losing. You're not winning at credit cards if you're making minimum. Credit cards probably aren't for you right now if that's the case. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. It makes total sense. Yep.
So if you're just trying to make, I want to get my credit score better, so I'm just going to make minimum payments. I'm just going to make this a statement balance. Whatever your thought process is there, you are losing the forest through the trees. Focus more on paying your balance off in full every month. Don't spend more money than you're making, and your credit score will improve. Unfortunately, once you have kind of messed up your payment history, the only thing you can start to do today is start paying your balances in full and don't miss it again. Set everything on auto payment and get it ready. Set it for not minimum, not for statement balance, paid in full. Paid in full every single month. If you need to put minimum balance, then go ahead and do that because that won't hurt your credit score, but it will hurt your credit. So it will hurt your credit score because it's going to increase your credit utilization. So it might fix one part of it, the 35% in the payment history, but it's not going to fix the credit utilization, the 30%. Again, all of these factors work together when everyone focuses only on one thing.
Gotcha. So it's not enough to just focus on one thing. You got to know all of it, how it works, if you want to not necessarily master it, but at least be adequate with how it works so you can take all the benefits from it, right?
Yep. Control what you can control. I have too many people that's come to me complaining, saying like, oh, my credit history is so short because of how young I am, and I don't have a good credit mix because I don't need a student loan or I can't afford a house and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that makes up 25% of your score. And right now you're using 100% of your utilization and you're making minimum payments or you're missing payments. Stop focusing on the 20% when you have 65% sitting right in front of you. So things that hurt our credit score. Number one, late or missed payments. Number two, maxing out our credit cards. And the reason for that is it's increasing our credit utilization. Remember that we want our credit utilization to be under 30%, ideally. If we can go even lower than that, wonderful. Number three, closing old accounts. We talked about that. If you close an old account, that shows that your credit history has now been diminished greatly. Number four, applying for multiple cards in one short amount of time. And one short amount of time for a credit card is anything less than 48 to 24 hours, depending on the credit cards. So that means if you're applying for a new credit card every week, every couple of days, that they're showing that why is this person looking for so many credit cards so quickly? What's going on in this person's life? They're going to be at a higher disadvantage because if someone wants all of that credit, it's for a reason, and they're probably going to shoot themselves in the foot. And no one wants to be the lender that lost the bag. Everyone's going to be like, what's going on with this person?
So
the final one.
Quick question before you go on to the final one, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this question is definitely not for everybody. In fact, it's for a very, very, very small amount of people. But for those who want to kind of get into credit card hacking, how long should they wait then in between getting different credit cards or applying for different credit cards?
Look at your score, and you'll be able to determine based off of your credit history. Because again, I don't know what their credit history is. I don't know what their payments are. I don't know what their utilization is. I don't know their credit mix. I don't know their inquiry amounts. So you have to look at your score. Once you apply, you're going to see your credit score drop by a little bit. How long does it take for it to come back up? Because for me, I can apply for a card pretty much every 3 months, 2 to 3 months, and my credit score stays in the same range.
Okay. And when you say range, are we're not talking like a 100-point swing, not even like a 50-point swing, maybe like a
10 or 20.
10 or 20. Okay.
10 to 20 points. And like, again, like if it's at a 820 and then it goes to 810, it's like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not applying for a house. If I was applying for a house or something like that, I wouldn't be doing that at that time because
Okay.
I want to keep it as high as I possibly can.
Okay.
The final one that hurts people's credits, and this is such a big one, especially with everything we've talked about just asking the question, and that's ignoring errors on your credit report. This is what most people do if they ever do actually pull their credit report. They only look at the first thing. They look at the number and they go, okay, cool. And they throw the rest of it away. You need to dig into that and see what makes up this number. If there are issues, you need to contest it. You need to call the credit companies. You need to let them know. It is so important to not only monitor your credit, but also report mistakes. Because mistakes can be fixed, but if you don't say anything, then no fairy is going to come down and be like, oh, hey, Dominic, we found all these things for you that we want to fix for you. You need to be your own advocate with your credit score. Don't sit there and passively complain about it. Deal with it. And that means you have to make a phone call. That means you have to send an email. That means you have to put in some work. And I can promise you that the work that you put in will benefit you.
But nobody wants to do that work. That's the problem.
And we can only help who we can help.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we talked about everything from what it is to what it makes up to and how it can hurt you and what you can do to hurt it. Now, what's the next part?
Now I want to talk about the big thing.
Okay.
What can we do to improve it? If my credit score is in the poor, the fair, the good, and I want it to be excellent, very good, what can I do today to start making that? And if you guys listened closely to all the things that you shouldn't do, it should sound a lot like all the things you shouldn't do in reverse. That's how we improve these things. There are no secrets. There are no hacks. There are a couple of them that I'm going to talk about that I already did cover that can help out. But again, majority of this comes in time. So the first thing we can do to improve our credit score is pay your balances on time. No exceptions. No exceptions to that. If that means that you can only make a minimum payment, no exceptions. You're paying it on time. Ideally, we're paying at least statement or full balance, but we do not miss payments. You have to pay at least the minimum every time. And again, that makes up 35% of the score. You may not be fixing the other 30%, the credit utilization, but don't let that payment history go down, because once it goes down, you could never be back at 100. You can only start to build it back up to the close 999s.
Interesting. Okay. Let's keep going.
Number 2, keep utilization low. If you want to hurt your credit score, we keep utilization high. So in order to do the reverse, to make it better, we keep utilization low. So that means pay down your balances, increase credit limits responsibly. Saying, hey, if I have $1,000 limit and now I can get another credit card that's going to bump me up to $10,000, well, hey, now your credit limit just expanded by a factor of 10. That doesn't mean though that you go out there and try to spend $10,000 more dollars, but now your credit utilization can be substantially lower. Additionally, use the hack that I talked about earlier. The only thing that gets reported to the credit bureau is when the statement balance hits. So that means if your statement balance hits on the 15th, meaning that the credit card company says, hey, you have the 15th, you have up until that day, well, I would say 2 days ahead of time, like the 13th, so the payment can go through, to pay that balance off in full. And then they'll report to the credit bureau that you had 0 on your card. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that as best as I can?
I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. So as long as you pay it a couple days before the statement drops, it won't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It'll show as 0, and that is good. You don't want to stay in the 0 range forever, but most people are never going to, because there's always going to be pending payments. There's always going to be something that's going to be hitting your cards, especially if you get into credit card hacking. You can't hit them all. You're going to miss some occasionally, and that's okay.
So why don't we want to hit 0 all the time, right? Would that just show that, like, hey, he has no credit history?
Yeah, that's going to show that why does this person have all this credit available to them and they're not using it? Because it's a balance, right? If they want you to use your credit and they don't want you to use it simultaneously. So it's really difficult. So you have to kind of play in that middle ground. Because say you have $10,000 that I'm giving to you and I see every single month for the last year, you haven't used any of it. And now you're saying, hey, I want another $10,000. I'm going to say why. Like what's going on? I already gave you this 10,000. You never used any of it. Why do you want 10 more? So you want to show that you're at least using it. That's why the range of 30% is ideal, but the lower, the better, down to 0 over a long period of time.
Yeah. I never thought about that, right? Asking for more. It's like, you don't use what you have. So why would we give you more? Interesting. You're dropping a lot of gems on us today. I'm loving this. Please, let's keep it going.
Of course, it's always a balance with these things. And that's the difficult part is people focus on one side of the ledger rather than looking at the holistic picture. And you have to be able to look at the holistic picture or you're never going to really succeed because you're only going to be stuck in one spot. So Number three of how to improve your credit score, maintain old accounts. And this runs contrary to what people believe, where they say, hey, if you want to improve your credit, you need to close your credit cards. That can be helpful if you're hurting yourself by opening a bunch of cards and not paying them off in full. If you're hurting yourself by utilizing the card because you have to for some reason, but it's going to hurt because you're going to have less cards available to you. So meaning your credit utilization will be smaller. Your length of history will be smaller. Your credit mix will be smaller. You've just now hurt yourself three ways by closing out an old card. So remember, you have to look at this holistically and see all the factors that it can help and hurt you.
And where do you even go to kind of monitor this? I mean, obviously, some people get paper statements, but it doesn't show them their credit score. How can they kind of better monitor all of this stuff?
There's paid services. Most banks now through the app will allow you to go ahead and pull your credit score without a hard inquiry. The other big thing is you can go to annualcreditreport.com. I believe you have to go to .com, not .net. And you're able to pull a credit score from each company. And it used to only be once a year. And now I believe you can do it once a month without it harming your credit score. So you can look at that every month. You can monitor it. There are credit monitoring services. There are so many different ways nowadays. I'm not going to run through all of them because we'll be here for too long, but you are more than welcome to pull your credit score and look at it. But the most important thing is once you look at it, you don't just look at the score. Hey, if the score is like an 850 and you're like, okay, I can't improve that, then that's fine. You can look at the score and be happy with that.
Yeah.
But if it's anything that you're like, oh, I think it should be higher, you need to look on the second page, on the third page, on the fourth page, see what makes up those credit scores out of those 5 factors and see if there's any issues that you don't notice, because the credit card companies are not perfect. There are mistakes. I've had mistakes on my credit cards where they said I missed a payment or that I had a card on my inquiry that I never had, or I pulled a hard inquiry that I never did. And I called them, I talked to them, and they're like, oh, I don't know how that happened. They took it off.
That sounds very useful. And you said the first one is free, right?
They're pretty much all free. Yeah, you can do it once a month for free.
Nice.
You pay nothing for it.
And if I remember correctly, when we first did this podcast, I ended up doing that. The site is a little bit sketchy. It's a government site, right? So it looks,
it looks sketchy.
The first one, what was the name of the first one?
Annualcreditreport.com.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one I used. I enjoyed it. A little sketchy. You know, live life on the bold, right? Okay, so we talked a little bit about paying on time. We talked a little bit about credit utilization. What else we got?
We talked about maintaining old cards. The next thing is diversify your credit types, if needed, though. That's a big part, if needed. So if you're someone who has student loans, who needs a car payment, who needs a mortgage payment, who has credit cards, then go ahead and use those credits because it will help your diversification of credit types. But remember, that only makes up 10%. What I'm not telling you to do, which most people do, is they say, I want to have better diversity of credit. So they go and they get a car payment that they didn't need. They go and they get another credit card. They go and they take out loans that they never needed from different places in order to say, hey, look at all this diversity of credit. And they end up shooting themselves in the foot. Because now, yes, you might help the diversity of credit, but you're going to hurt with the credit inquiries. Your length of credit history is going to shorten because you're going to have a bunch of new ones versus one old one. Your credit utilization is often going to increase. And then you increase the chances of you missing a payment. So don't sacrifice 10% or sacrifice 90% for 10%. Too many people do that. There's too much misinformation of people telling you one factor rather than saying you have to look at all of these factors. And I know it's more difficult, and that's the way that life is.
Gotcha. So just because I have a car loan doesn't mean it's like, oh, I want my credit score to go up. I'm gonna go back to college. Like that's probably not a good line of thinking. Gotcha.
No. And that's why I said, if needed, if you want to go back to college, like that's already in the cards. Hey, wonderful. My credit score might get a little increase. And it's going to take a decrease for a second because you're also going to be having a new inquiry. You're going to have a hard inquiry there. So you have to remember you're giving a little bit and you're taking a little bit. So diversify your credit types if needed, if necessary for your life. The next one is limit new applications. So if you're a credit card hacker like me and you're using credit cards, you have to play that game responsibly. That means that you're not applying for cards every 2 weeks, every week. If you're like that, and there are times that me and my wife, we will apply for multiple cards in a week, in 2 weeks, and we know what we're doing to our credit score because we have history. We understand what it's going to do. And we also know that it's not going to harm us because we're not doing something that we don't know how to do. And we're not doing it around the times that we need our credit score to be high. There are people that can apply for credit cards every month, every few months. I do myself, and you have to know that for yourself. I can't tell you the algorithm because no one really knows. There isn't, because it constantly updates.
Okay. It's like one of
So
those answers where it's like, you hate it, but it's the only answer that's acceptable. No.
it's limit applications to how much you actually need,
Yeah.
to which actually required by you or that you want. But don't be doing things that just because somebody told you to. The next thing to improve your credit score is you need to check your credit reports annually. I would say at least annually. And again, you can go to annualcreditreport.com, look at that. Don't just look at the score, look at what comprises the score. And if there's anything, you need to dispute errors when you find them immediately. And that means you have to make a phone call. And I know that's the most terrifying thing in the world, that I have to make a phone call. But trust me, that phone call will save you so much headache down the road, rather than you seeing something that's inaccurate, saying, it's not that big of a deal. And then when you go and apply for an apartment, for a home, for a car, for your student loans, for a bank, whatever, or you want to start a business, all of these things are going to look at your credit score. And if there was a time that you could have fixed something years ago that you were like, I don't want to deal with it, now it's going to come back and hurt you. So make a phone call, set aside 15, 30 minutes, get it done. The worst thing that you can do if you call them and say, hey, this is wrong, is they say no. They're not going to be like, oh, you called and you were wrong. Now we're going to hurt your credit score even more. They don't do that.
They don't do
At least
that?
if they do, I'm unaware of it.
They don't do that? I thought they did that. I thought maybe it's just in my own head. You call.
It's like that trial by combat thing. Like if you fail, we do it even worse.
We're gonna that's exactly what it is. That's exactly. Well, that's good to know that they're not going to punish you for just inquiring about questions and trying to help yourself out a little bit. I know a lot of us think that that's what they're going to do. That's kind of like why you don't raise your hand in class. You're like, I don't want it to be even worse than what's going to happen. It's like, oh yeah, you answered wrong on this one. Guess what? The next 3 years, get up to the front of the class. Crap. Thankfully, that doesn't happen.
Thankfully.
Okay, so I love that. This is great. Let's continue, please.
I want to finish out with some of the most common myths that I hear about credit scores. So hopefully people can hear this and be like, oh, my uncle told me about this. My dad told me about this. And my uncle and my dad, they were right on one part, but they were wrong in other areas. Because unfortunately, when most people tell you something, they're not lying to you. They're just telling you a partial truth because they only know that partial truth. So some of the most common myths I've heard about credit scores in my decade, almost 11 years as a financial professional. Number one, no credit card equals good credit. How many times have you heard people say that? Oh, I have such good credit. I don't use credit cards or anything like that.
That's wild. That doesn't even make any sense.
Well, think about Dave Ramsey. This is what Dave Ramsey promotes. Yep. Why would you have a credit card? If you want to have good credit, then don't use a credit card. But if you don't use a credit card, what things are we not having? We don't have payment history. We don't have credit utilization, really. We don't have length of history. It's going to be hard. Credit mix is going to be hard. We're going to give up 90% of all those things if we don't use credit cards. I'm not saying use credit cards all the damn time. You shouldn't. But if you're not taking out any credit at all, how are you going to build anything up? Think about when you applied for your first card at 18. You had zero credit history. What did everyone have to do? They had to have their mom and dad use their credit history to help them out.
Which makes you wonder. It's like, how did the first person ever get credit? You know, which came first? A credit card, or the creditor? It's like, it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Well, at first they were collateralized, so you had to put money up. And there are credit cards like that now that do that, where you can put money up in order to help build your credit score. We're not going to go into all of those, but there is a lot of different ways to build a credit score now. So if you need help with how to get started, if you're really down in the dumps, Google it. There are so many different resources to help you. Just make sure that you're looking at it holistically, not just looking at one factor.
Yeah. I did not know you could put up money as collateral. That's wild.
Yep. That way they'll lower the interest rate, because if you fail, then they just take the money that you put up against it.
I mean, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's not super common, though.
No, it's not super common, but for starter credit cards or for people with very, very low credits who are in the poor or fair range that need to get that up, and people aren't going to lend to them because every time that they've done it in the past, they've got burned. Yeah. Those are usually the only things they can get. A lot of student credit cards are like that too. Hey, we'll give you, $500 limit, but you need to have $500 in a bank account that we need to see that you can maintain $500, and we'll give you $1,000 limit or something like that.
That makes sense. Okay. Interesting.
So, myth number one, no credit card equals good credit. Completely false. Myth number two, checking my credit score will lower it. We've already talked about that. That is false, because whenever you check your credit score, typically you're doing a soft inquiry. That's the reason you're able to check all three of your accounts every month, because it's a soft inquiry. The only one that harms your credit score is a hard inquiry. And if you're doing a hard inquiry, there's going to be a bunch of factors that it's going to be telling you, hey, this is going to be a hard inquiry. This has the potential to harm your credit score. If you go to that annualcreditreport.com and you use it there, as long as you're not doing it every single day, you will be fine. You can check your credit scores. You can go there. You can check all 3 major bureaus today and see how you're looking, and it will not hurt your credit score. Because again, it is a soft inquiry, and the one that harms you, 10%, is the hard inquiries.
And I just want to make a quick point before we move on to the next one. Make sure to encourage your parents to really check their credit score as well, because a lot of elderly people are getting scammed with their credit cards. So make sure that they're checking. You might check and be like, oh, wow, you have a bunch of debt on this card that you've never heard of. So make sure to be on top of that and actually look after the people who are important to you in your life. But yes, sorry, Chris, please continue on with your knowledge dropping.
I think that's a perfect point. Number 3 of common myths. Carrying a balance helps my credit score. I've heard this one time and time again. Chris, I can't pay my credit cards in full. If I do that, then my credit score is going to drop because that's what they want, right? They want the balance. And I say, yeah, but how much money are you losing in interest every month? They want you. The credit card companies are not your friends. They're trying to screw you over. They're going to tell you, hey, you want to just make the minimum payment every single month to help your credit score. And if your credit score increases a tiny bit from that, that might be wonderful. But if you're paying 18%, 15%, 25% interest because you're making minimum payments on those cards, it does not matter what your credit score is because you're losing too much money for that. I have a perfect credit score. I pay off everything in full. I do not hold balances on anything. I use my credit card like a debit card and it works perfectly. Don't fall into this trap. It's not this lie was made by the credit card companies in order to tell you to hold that balance because it benefited them and only them. So carrying a balance to help your score is completely false.
It's good to know. Good to know. Getting these misnomers out of the way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. This is a pretty common one. I knew a guy who had all of these credit cards, had mortgage payments, car loans, and he was just paying all of them. He had the money to pay off all of those loans, and he was choosing not to because he was worried that it would hurt his credit score. And it might hurt his credit score a little bit in terms of the utilization now dropping, length of history might have dropped, a few things might have dropped. But with the credit card payments, especially with the credit card payments, most credit cards have 15 to 25% interest rates on it.
Yeah.
The couple of points he was getting on his credit score was not worth the hundreds and hundreds of dollars he was paying every month to the bank for things that he already owned.
Okay.
And had the money to pay off.
Yeah. He just didn't know. He just didn't know.
And this is the final one. Number 4, closing my credit cards helps control spending. This one is difficult because it is true, but only for you. Yes, closing your credit cards might help you control your spending, but it hurts your credit score. It's going to lower your credit history. It's going to lower your utilization. It's going to lower your credit mix. But if you're the type of person that gets a credit card and you get whatever limit, and you're the person that says, I need to spend this limit right now, credit cards are not for you. And that's okay. You need to figure that out before you start focusing on all these other things. Closing a card can help you with your spending, but it's not the credit card's fault. It's your fault. It's your problem.
Perfectly said. I mean, this is it's a medium level podcast, right? This episode, but it's good to know it at every stage, right? If you don't have a credit card or if you're a seasoned veteran, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a seasoned veteran, right? I would say I'm more of a newbie, middle ground, right? But I definitely learned 2 or 3 things today. My goodness. But yeah, this has been a wealth of knowledge. Any other misnomers, any other kind of final thoughts you want to add, Chris, before we finish it off here?
No, I'd love to finish it off. And what I'm going to do is just make sure that everyone understands that your credit score is your financial trustworthiness score. The score runs from a 300, which is poor, all the way to an 850, which is excellent. Traditionally, anything over a 720 is considered very good, and you're going to be in those top ranges. 720, 740 depends on that. Credit score is made up of 5 different factors, 35% being payment history, 30% being utilization, 15% length of credit history, 10% credit mix, 10% new inquiries. Remember, the other 35% of that length of credit, mix, and new inquiries, you really can't do a lot about that unless you need that in life. So focus on the 65% that you do have control over. That's your payment history and your credit utilization. Everything else will come with time. There are many ways to hurt your credit score, and there are many ways to improve your credit score. If you know one of them, just do the opposite to hurt them, and then do the opposite to make them better. There are a bunch of myths around credit, and the reason for that is most people go through life only looking at one factor. So I need you guys to make sure that you take a wider perspective, and that's what we teach here at the Fi Guys. And we always have an action step. So I want you to do a quick hit checklist for our listeners. Number one, I want you to set up automatic payments for each one of your cards so that you never miss a payment. That makes up 35% of your credit score. Number two, I want you to pay down those balances to below 30% utilization. So that means that when you pull up your credit score, it will tell you how much credit limit you have available to you, whether that be $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. Calculate what 30% of that is and pay everything as much down as you can to be below that. And ideally, don't go above it again. And keep on trying to go lower and lower and lower. Number three, check your credit score regularly. I would say go on tonight, today, to annualcreditreport.com, pull your credit report with your social security number, your information, take a look at that number, and then look at the next few pages to see what comprises. If there's anything wrong, you need to make a phone call. You need to let somebody know. And the final thing, be patient. Good credit takes time to build, and it will build over time if you stick to the process. There are no quick fixes. It all just takes time. And I know that sucks. That's just the way it is. Oftentimes when people try to make things go fast, they end up in a harder time a little bit later.
Very true. Very true. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know I did. I know I got a lot out of it. I learned a bunch. If you did, which I assume you did, make sure to share it with a friend or a family member, a parent even, if you want to get them involved in all this fun stuff. We appreciate you guys' support. But yeah, we hope you use it, though. We really hope you use it. Because if you don't use it, it's just entertainment. And that's fun, but we want to really make your guys' life a little bit better financially and actually all the way around, to be honest. But if you are new here, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. 5-star rating on all of the podcast platforms that we happen to be on. Chris, any final thoughts before we leave them?
We look forward to seeing you on Fi Friday Feedback. Please make sure you get those action steps done. There should be no reason for missing payment credit cards that are outside of your control. It's all within your control. All of these are within your control. And it just takes time. Credit scores can be built over time, but can be destroyed in a day.
True. Yeah. That's a scary thing to think about. But yes, can be built over time, but destroyed in a day. My goodness. Well, with that quote, we will leave you. I'm Dom. He's Chris. We're the Fi Guys. See you on Friday.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.